of the MC, with the ICT and NPC conducted an information campaign on 2 October 2018, 4 days before the effectivity of the MC. In this event, potential bidders were able to ask clarificatory questions on the MC. On 15 October, NPC had concluded the pre-selection information session. In this event, NPC answered queries and contents of the MC and the instruction to proponents or ITP. NPC also conducted training on the Form A of MC. Form A is the one that it is a computer-generated form where all data of the contenders, Excel form, will be inputted, and the highest committed level of service will be immediately known when the bidders submitted their bid on 10 o'clock a.m. November 7th. The selection process that the Duterte administration is conducting has already attracted 8 contenders. As of October 19, we are expecting more, but out of these 8, 3 of them are big foreign telecommunication operators, one of which is even bigger than Globe and Smart combined, who have vast experience in nationwide telecommunication operation. We are on track in fulfilling President Duterte's desired timeline, which is to have an NMP by November of this year. In fact, we are 17 days away in fulfilling it. But because of the act of one contender, we are trying our best to answer all the queries that was brought to the court so that this deadline will not be derailed. Just as to provide a perspective on the issue of the Honorable Committee now, it has brought us to court, claims that security and key in the MC are onerous, confiscatory, and potentially extortionary. Hence, they would want the President to choose the new major player and not the NPC. But this
Secretary, didn't the courts decide already that it will not, it didn't side with
they decided, Your Honor, that the temporary restraining order is tonight, but the injunction will still continue. The hearing of the injunction.
So there's no TRO, so you can continue with your process?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, go ahead, please.
But I must emphasize that only this one contender brought out all this issue, and the other contenders are in fact have not brought anything of what they are claiming. Provision on security and fees are already present in the earlier drafts of the DOR. Insertion of said provisions are consistent with the rationale of bidding and procurement process and are even lower than those required by RA 9184 or the Government Reform Act. Securities and fees are not money-making scheme, but are inserted to ensure that the government will be able to attract participants while ensuring that the winner will be able to expand intensive competition against the entrenched incumbent telco. And lastly, Your Honor, the timeline indicated in this slide will be intact. And on November 07, we will have a provisional new major player barring any decision from the court. But before I end, I just want to remind everybody that the entry of the new major player was directed by the President himself as a way to improve telecommunication services of the country. At the end of the day, it is for the benefit of all of us. Hence, we appeal everyone to make this initiative of our President a success. Thank you for your attention, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Just a few things before we continue with the NTC presentation. Since you mentioned about fees, okay, number one, who again is in the selection committee? It would be the NTC, the DICT, who else?
The terms of reference, Your Honor, defines who are going to be the members of the selection.
Okay, just so there's accountability and transparency. Who are they? Attorney Cordova, please answer.
Thank you for the question, Your Honor. The President issued Administrative Order Number 11, which formed the Oversight Committee that helped the NTC in crafting and assisted the NTC in crafting the terms of reference. This is composed by the DICT Secretary as the Chair, the DOF Secretary as Vice Chair. The members are the Office of the Executive Secretary and the National Security Advisor as member also.
So, yes. How many of you will decide, basically based on the bids?
Your Honor, based on the Republic Act 7925, it would only be the NTC that would do the selection because that is under the power.
So it's the NTC's board?
Your Honor, what we did was there's a selection committee formed under the Office of the Commissioner of the NTC, and then
who are these members?
The head of the legal department and other officials.
Okay, so of this oversight committee that was formed will only be recommendatory. You have no say on the decisions. It will just be purely the NTC. So who are these?
The Administrative Order 11, Your Honor, just required the Oversight Committee to help NTC in coming up with its selection process, and that's what we did. And Your Honor, the NTC, the selection process of NTC that was approved by the Oversight Committee, mainly, as I have said before, there is no discretion at all to any person in the selection committee.
How come? Because there are actual terms of reference that they have to comply with?
No, Your Honor. The highest committed level of service, which should be the basis of the selection, will all come from the contenders themselves, and they will have to input it in a Form A that we call through the computer, through an Excel program, and there is nothing that anybody in the selection committee or outside the contenders' office who can change or manipulate the data that they will input in their own.
So if it's inputted and analyzed by a program, this will be witnessed by somebody also from the oversight as well as the NTC, correct?
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, the program has been analyzed by all the stakeholders, the consumer groups, and contenders themselves, and there are no complaints, even from now.
Okay. I would like to ask now, what are the total fees required? If you are interested, let's say, to bid, And then is there a bond that needs to be submitted?
Yes, yes, Your Honor. If a company or a participant would like to buy the selection documents, it is 1 million pesos, Your Honor.
Okay,
Yes.
and then
there's the participation security. This refers to in 9184. It's called the bidding security. Bid security. It's a 0.5% of the minimum capital expenditure or operational expenditure. That amounts to around 700 million, Your Honor. But it is you don't have to pay it in cash. It can be through an irrevocable letter of credit or through a bank guarantee. But it can only be touched if you violate some provisions stated in the MC itself, Your Honor.
okay, so meaning it's refundable if they don't.
Actually, Your Honor, we don't have it. They just give us a bank guarantee or a irrevocable letter of credit. It's, for example, if, for example, they submit a falsified document, then if we find out that it's falsified, it's not true, then we can go against the irrevocable letter of credit. It's only if they have violations such as those.
Okay.
The third would be the performance security. Your Honors, in the highest committed level of service, the participant will give its bid based on 3 parameters. The first would be the coverage, internet speed, and capital expenditure and operational expenditure. Okay. Then this bid is on a 5-year period, which is called the commitment period. Every year, they will be audited on 2 parameters. If they comply with their bid on coverage, if for example po, sinabi lang that we will cover this much number of areas, if they do not, or if they do not reach the speed that they committed, then the government can go against their performance security. Ano po ito? What will happen is that there will be independent auditors who would do the audit on a yearly basis if they reach those amounts. If they don't, then we go against the performance security, just like in any other bid like 9184 or the other BOT law and other laws. It's ano po, 10% of the remaining cumulative CAPEX, OPEX during the commitment period. For example, Your Honors, for the first year, ay hindi po niya natupad yung pong pangako niya, then we go against the performance security. Ibig po sabihin, nag-default na po siya and hindi po siya tumupad sa kanyang pangako. Kung nagtupad po siya sa first year, sa second year, then it's the CAPEX, it's based on the remaining 10% of the CAPEX, OPEX for the second year onwards. So, yung po natutupad mo every year ay natatanggal na po yun.
So ito yung sa 700 million?
No, Your Honor. That would depend. The amount would depend on your bid on capital expenditure and operational expenditure.
Okay.
And then ano po, another fee is the appeal fee. If you question the decision of the selection committee, papunta po sa impact, then you have to pay a 10 million appeal fee. This is also based on Republic Act 9184. Kung saan po ay to prevent frivolous appeals or delaying tactics, dapat po ay seryoso ka, you should pay for the appeal.
Otherwise, you're automatically disqualified.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Your Honor, we can submit to the honorable committee. We made we made a table kung saan po nakalagay yung sa selection process, kung magkano, tapos yung po sa Republic Act 9184, and then yung pong PPP-BOT law, and yung NETA joint venture guidelines.
That would be much appreciated. Thank you. If you can furnish the members of the committee a copy now, the committee secretary, please. Actually, I have a quick question also. This is I'm quite curious. It's good to have the impartiality or the objectiveness maybe of a program to be able to analyze compliance. On the other hand, there's also another aspect that we are concerned about, especially if we have foreign interests and investors. It's good to have the investment here, but we are also concerned about national security. That's why I'm sure you made Secretary Lorenzana a member of this oversight committee. So tell me, how is the computer able to determine that?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you for the question. We are really concerned with whatever national security the third telco could have. We have already past experience on this during the past administration, Your Honor, when in fact Globe overhauled its whole network nationwide, and Huawei was the winner of their bid, no? And that time, 2 years after that, we had this West Philippine Sea situation, no? And therefore that more or less alerted the National Security Advisor, then Cesar Garcia, to call Globe and ask for what will be the assurance that the Huawei network will not be used against national security. And Globe was able to come up with an answer, that is to come up with a cybersecurity audit that they will do themselves. In fact, I think they contracted an Israeli firm to do this for them. And the report of this cybersecurity audit will also, the government will be given a copy of this. This is what we are going to do to whoever wins in the new major player, Your Honor. We are very concerned on the national security, cybersecurity, because we are now actually experiencing so many cyber attacks.
So, okay, you are concerned about it, and rightly so, but how are you going to ensure that whoever will win it has actually complied with that? You have only until November 7, if I'm not mistaken, and you have all of these interested parties. Did you do a pre-determination of their qualification as...
Yes, Your Honor. In the terms of reference itself, there is a provision there that whoever will win must assure the government of the Philippines that it will not be a national security threat, with some actionable demonstration of their network, Your Honor.
Okay. This question is for Attorney Cordova. Sir, part of the requirement of operating a telecommunications company is that you should have a franchise. Okay, now, the ones that are interested, not all of them have franchises, or in fact, I don't see anyone. Oh well, I think one has for sure, I know. But franchise, if they don't have a franchise and they're the majority shareholder, they own it, they still have to go through Congress to get a franchise. That's my understanding, right? I mean, I'm sure NTC can give a provisional permit, and if they win this, I don't see any reason why Congress will not grant them the franchise, but that's still a to comply with, am I correct?
Actually, Madam Chair, in our definition of a participant, the participant should have a congressional franchise, Madam Chair. They cannot participate in the proceedings, in the process, if they don't have a congressional franchise.
So, you're telling me all of those companies that isa-isahin natin? Kasi parang, Tenor, do they have a franchise? China, do they have a franchise? They will partner up with somebody who has a franchise, is what you're saying?
Yes, Your Honor. They will partner up with a local Filipino franchise holder.
But then, if they haven't partnered up, how would you know that they have a franchise?
Your Honor, they would have to form a group where there is a congressional franchise holder in their group. Because under the law, Your Honor, the NTC cannot give a license or any frequencies to an entity that doesn't have a telco congressional franchise.
Madam Chair, the way I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Cordova, 8 companies bought bid documents. In fact, some of those who bought bid documents aren't even known. They were bought through their representatives. So right now, we don't know exactly who will participate in the bid. But to participate in the bid, they have to partner with an entity that has an existing congressional franchise as required by law under the Deregulation of Telecommunications Act. Is that right?
You're correct, Your Honor.
So the fact that they bought documents, hindi pa required na magpakita sila ng pag nag-bid na sila at walang prangkisa, yung partner nila, hindi kasama sa consortium, may prangkisa, then they would be disqualified. Is that
yes, you are correct, Your Honor.
Do you have a presentation, sir? Or have we discussed already what you were about to present?
I can present, Your Honor, the details for you to appreciate the
okay, please go ahead.
The memorandum circular.
Yes.
May we proceed, Your Honors? We are now going to present some of the salient points of Memorandum Circular 99-2018 issued by the NMP on the selection process for a new major player in the Philippine telecommunications market. Next slide, please. This was already discussed by Secretary Rio. The President in December 2017 gave a directive to the NTC and to the DICT to finish this by the first quarter of 2018. However, he gave us another deadline, which is November of this year. Next slide, please. There are offices, Your Honors, that helped draft the MC. It is not solely the NTC, but with the help of so many government offices. The Oversight Committee members, based on Administrative Order 11, the DICT as chair, UOF as vice chair, OES as member, and NSA as member. Next slide. We also got help from the Department of Justice, Office of the Solicitor General, the Insurance Commission, the SEC, PPP Center, NEDA, and the Philippine Competition Commission. Next slide, please. Now, we also asked for help from other experts that helped us draft the MC. We asked for help from the International Telecoms Union through Dr. Ismail Shah, ITU Area Representative and Head of ITU Office for Southeast Asia and Timor-Leste, and ITU expert, Mr. Scott Meinheim. Actually, Your Honors, the fee for the ITU consultant was partly paid for by the International Telecoms Union. We also got help for the computations and formulas from Ateneo Math Department Chair Felix Muga, and for the legal provisions from Ateneo Law School Dean Cesar Villanueva. Now, we also asked for public participation in drafting the memorandum circular. We had 3 public consultations by the DICT, as discussed by Secretary Rio earlier, 1 public hearing by the NTC, 1 public information campaign by the DICT, and 1 pre-selection information session by the NTC. Next slide. Now, to give you an overview, this will be the flow of our presentation on the MC po, ano? First item will be the qualifications, second will be the criteria, third will be the what will the new major player get, fourth, what are the obligations of the new major player, fifth, annual audit of commitments, sixth, sanctions for breach of commitments, and seventh, timeline. Okay. Now let's go to the participants' qualifications. Your Honors, as mentioned earlier, as discussed earlier, these are the ones who may participate in the selection process. A congressional franchise holder, it should be a telco franchise, national in scope, and should cover all services. 2, a congressional franchise holder covered by a bidding agreement with committed local or foreign investors. Ito po yung pinagit ni Senator Chis Escudero earlier. It's like a group of investors, but there should be a franchise holder. The franchise holder should be the sole entity declared to be the NMP. NMP po is new major player. And the recipient of all the CPs of the license and permits, and of course, sila din po ang sisingilin sa obligations, yung congressional franchise holder. Okay. Next slide. Participants' qualifications. Legal qualifications. Holder of a congressional franchise is not a related party as defined by SEC Memorandum Circular Number 19, Series of 2016 to any government telecommunications player and has no outstanding liabilities or uncontested obligations to the NTC as of October 1, 2018. Okay. Financial capability po, it has to have a paid capital of at least 10 billion pesos, or if we're referring to the group, which is a consortium, the aggregate paid capital of its members should at least be 10 billion pesos. Next slide. Technical capability. Experience in provisioning, delivery, and operations of telecommunication services for the last 10 years on a national scale. Now, if you're a group or a consortium, it is covered by a bidding agreement. One of its members, hindi po naman kailangan lahat, shall have experience in provisioning, delivery, and operations of telecommunication services for the last 10 years on a national scale. Now, let us go to...
Teka muna, sir. National scale sa Pilipinas lang. Paano kung may national scale abroad naman?
Actually, Your Honor, if it refers to letter A, congressional franchise holder, then national operations in the Philippines. But if it's a letter B, it has other investors, then it can present one of its investors that has 10 years experience in other jurisdictions, Your Honor.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, sir.
That's good.
Just on that point,
Yes.
let's be frank, Lil. Walang domestic Filipino company na may experience sa national telecom except for Globe and Smart. So, lahat ng mga bidder na may domestic franchise that's Filipino-owned would need a foreign partner na nakagawa na niyan sa ibang bansa. Diba?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Now we will proceed to the number 2 selection criteria. Next slide, please. Okay. Yung pong unang criteria ay yung pong national population coverage, Your Honors. This refers to the service coverage of the participants' network committed to be established in terms of specified barangays and its corresponding populations stated as a percentage of national population of the Philippines, excluding any coverage provided by dominant telecommunication players under a national roaming agreement or similar agreement. The population per barangay shall be based on the August 2015 official census conducted by the Philippine Statistics Authority. Your Honor, ito po yung binabanggit ni Secretary Rio earlier. We inputted this into a database, and yun pong sasali yung participant, nimili po siya ng mga barangays na kanyang lalagyan po ng coverage. Yun po yung kanyang parang roll-out plan doon sa mga barangays na yun. And then, itatali po yan ng Excel file or ng computer at lalabas po kung anong percentage ang commitment po niya per year for the commitment period for the first 5 years. Yes.
Just to clarify, Lil, ito yung hindi pa covered ng existing.
Actually, no, Your Honor. They can cover any barangays that they wish to cover.
Ano yung excluding any coverage provided by dominant telecommunication players? What do you mean by that?
Your Honor, kasi po, the NTC will be issuing Memorandum Circular on National Roaming. Ibig po sabihin ay habang for first 2 to 3 years of the operations of the new major player, ay pwede po silang mag-roam with Globe and Smart. Kasi po, syempre, nagsisimula po pa lang sila mag-roll out. So, mayroon po silang mga areas for the first 3 to 5 years na hindi pa nila maaabot. So, yung pong coverage na yun ay papatak po yun sa National Roaming Agreement. Because that is provided by Globe or Smart, Your Honors.
My understanding is one of the reasons why we're encouraging the entry of a third telco player is to cover areas that aren't being covered by the two dominant players. Ito yung parang kumbaga sa kuryente, missionary route. So if a bidder presents more missionary routes outside of the current coverage of the two dominant telco players, will that earn them more points in your Excel formula?
Actually, Your Honor, we do not differentiate between a covered area or area that has not yet been covered because we want competition, Your Honor. So, yung pong missionary areas, hindi po binibigyan ng premium yun, Your Honor.
Bahala na sila.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Next slide, please. Ito po naman yung weight given to the national population coverage, 40%. Ito po yung minimum and maximum po niya na coverage for the first 5 years of the population, and bids below the minimum shall not be accepted. The participant will not be disqualified. Will be disqualified. Ang computation po niya ay ganito. For every 1% of national population coverage over the minimum national population coverage up to the maximum per each year, the participant will receive 1 point per annum. So, ano po yan? Yun po yung formula computation. Okay, the next slide, please. Ito po yung minimum average broadband speed to be measured in, ito po yung second criteria, Your Honors. To be measured in megabits per second and means the permitted minimum national average broadband speed applicable to both fixed and mobile broadband services, which is available at least 80% of the time. The weight given to this is 25%. Minimum maximum average broadband speed is 5 Mbps to 55 Mbps. Bids of less than 5 Mbps average broadband speed shall not be accepted. Ang computation po niya is for every whole 2 Mbps minimum average broadband speed over 5 up to 55 Mbps, a participant will receive 1 point per annum. Next slide, please. Okay, ito naman po yung third criteria, yung pong annual capital expenditure, operational expenditure. The weight given is 35%. Minimum and maximum for CAPEX, OPEX are these amounts po, 40 to 140B for the first year, and so on. Bids below the minimum shall not be accepted. For every, the computation is for every 10 billion of cumulative CAPEX and OPEX over the minimum CAPEX and OPEX for each year, a participant will receive 3.5 points per annum. Any blank or zero or invalid entry shall be non-compliant. Ngayon po, dun po sa pag-audit on a yearly basis ay hindi po kasama ito sa iyo audit. Ang iyo audit lang po ay yung first two, which is the coverage and speed. Okay. The weight given to the computations per year ay ito po. For year 1, it's 100%. Year 2, 140%, and so on. Ang dahilan po dito is we are giving premium to the first 3 years because we want them to be operational and to be used by the people and to affect speed and coverage right away. Now, if, for example po, ay tataasan nila yung kanilang mga bids over the maximums, nothing shall limit and restrict a participant from submitting entries beyond maximum values, but no additional point shall accrue to the participant in these cases. It will be used lang po in deciding cases of ties based on the Memorandum Circular 7.4C6. I will read it later po. Now, ano po ang makukuha ng NMP if they are declared as the new major player? Next slide, please. Just to backtrack po, also as mentioned by Secretary Rio earlier, we have no discretion on the part of the NTC sa pag-judge po nito because it is purely based on the what they input on the Excel file on the program that they are given. Kung ano po ang lumabas doon ay yun po ang masusunod. Wala na pong discretion or judgment on the part of the NTC or any member of the Oversight Committee. Okay. Okay, ang ibibigay po namin pagka po nanalo po ng isang company or consortium ng bilang new major player is a license for 15 years or kung mas maiksi po ang franchise, yung pong life ng franchise niya. If for example, franchise holder is 5 taon na lang po ang natitira, we will only give them a license for 5 years. But if it is more than 15, if it's 15 or above, we'll give a 15-year license po. And then, Your Honors, we'll also give the frequencies required These are all the available frequencies. And we stated that in preparing and submitting its bid, the participant shall make its commitments and provide for the terms and conditions of its bid based on being assigned the above listed covered radio frequencies. Meron po kasi contingent radio frequency. This is in litigation in the Supreme Court right now. Sinabi po namin that if, for example, the NTC wins in this case, ang mangyayari po ay this frequency will be assigned to the new major player when the time happens. So, ano po, this is contingent naman po. Yes, Your Honor.
Senator Risa is recognized.
Salamat, Madam Chair. Sorry to interrupt, Attorney Cordova, pero yung nag-iisang tanong ko, which is actually pertinent for the period after Congress may file a bill and or decide upon this third major telco, has to do with frequency. So maitanong ko na rin ngayon. It's a question both for NTC and DICT. And it's related to a bill that I filed, an act providing for the allocation and management of the radio frequency spectrum. Malaman lang po yung opinion ninyo about this. What do the DICT and the NCT think about the regular reallocation or refarming of portions of the radio frequency spectrum through competitive bidding or auction? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that question, Madam Chair, Your Honor. Yes, actually, the real problem that we have now is that Globe and Smart have more or less acquired so many of the spectrum, leaving less than 1/3 to the new major player. No? So the new major player can operate initially with the present frequencies that will be awarded to it, but in the long run, it may need additional frequencies. And this is where, Your Honor, we are going to come up with policies, the ICT will come up with policies for the equitable distribution, redistribution of the spectrum, especially through frequency refarming, which are best practices in the other countries. Also, Your Honor, there is now in Congress a bill in coming up with also the same purpose in equitably redistributing our frequencies. I think you have something more to say?
We agree, Your Honor, with the policy that will be issued by the DICT to the NTC, and we will follow yung pong equitable distribution of frequencies in the future, and also based on the law that will be passed by Congress and pending here in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. We will participate in the deliberations, Your Honor, and we are willing to be your resource persons for those bills, Your Honors.
At yung best practices modes ng redistribution or reallocation, kasama ba doon yung competitive bidding or auction? Tulad ng sa ibang mga bansa and which has earned windfalls for those other countries, even in our region.
Yes, Your Honor. We have never done in this country an auction. So Globe and Smart were able to get, and other telcos for that matter, were able to get their frequencies awarded to them by the government at no upfront cost. So that is why we more or less said that the third telco, who is supposed to compete with the incumbent telco giants at that, Globe and Smart, who never bought their frequencies, and in fact the third telco will only get the frequencies that are left over by the two telcos. Why should the third telco buy or will be forced to buy this frequency through auction? So we said no auction for the third telco, but once we have leveled the playing field, then we can go into auction on new frequencies like the 5G. And that, Honor, is part of our policies that we're going to make. So ito po yung tinaman namin. The frequencies that are needed now by the third telco are the same frequencies that Globe and Smart never bought, but they were not subjected to an auction.
No, this is my question. So the government gave them those frequencies, and you're saying that there will be a redistribution, an equitable redistribution of those frequencies? And when is that? How long how long has the government give, or what is the time frame that they can hold on to these frequencies? Because you cannot just arbitrarily take it away from them to redistribute. So what is your agreement, let's say with Globe and Smart?
Yes, Your Honor. As usual, before we go into a policy, we have to have a consultation and public hearing with the stakeholders.
No, sir. I know, but is there anything, any contract between the government and these two telecommunications companies on how long they can hold on to that spectrum?
As of now, Your Honor, there is none.
Okay, so, so it's open-ended.
Yes, Your Honor, it's open-ended. But because we have been giving out, issuing out frequencies through an administrative procedure. And to take back the frequency needs a quasi-judicial procedure that makes it a little complicated, no? But we can do it without thinking of a policy that can get back the frequencies on an administrative procedure, and that is where we have to have a consultation with all the telcos. If frequencies are not being efficiently utilized, this can be subject to a higher spectrum usage fee, so that the holder will be forced to give it back.
Madam Chair, if I
Senator
may,
Cheese.
with the permission of Senator Risa, tama po yun, hindi binayaran ng dalawang major player yung frequency at bandwidth na nakuha nila. Wala silang binayad sa gobyerno. Unfortunately, ang binayaran nila yung mga franchise holders na private na nabigyan na ng frequency na NTC na hindi naman nila ginamit o nagamit. So, ang kumita rito, pribadong entity at hindi ang gobyerno dun sa frequency na nabigay sa kanila. Would that be correct, Secretary Rio?
Yes, Your Honor. Our laws does not prevent
Yes.
a telco to be sold to another telco.
Yes, but, and this is my point, sir, isn't there a provision on non-use for 2 years in all the franchises? In all the franchises approved by Congress, there is a provision on non-use for 2 years, in which case either the franchise or, in your case, either the bandwidth or the spectrum can be taken back by government or by the state, for that matter.
I can't remember any provision, Your Honor, but based on Republic Act 7925, it's non-use and non-payment of the spectrum users fees.
So, pag nagbayad pero hindi ginamit, okay lang.
Parang ganun po, Your Honor.
So, pag nagbayad, at mura lang yun, di ba? Attorney ko, di ba? Mura bayad sa gobyerno, di ba? Per year, magkano?
Actually, Your Honor, if we compare it to the income, for example, of the telcos, then we can say that it's relatively not so
If
expensive.
you compare it to the amount at which they sold it to the two major players, barya talaga yung nakuha ng gobyerno, di ba? Would that be correct?
Yes, Your Honor. That is why in our policy, we are going to put this into consideration. We can monitor frequencies that are not being efficiently utilized or that are not even utilized at all. We can measure that, and these frequencies, we can increase the SUF. That is an administrative function that we can do, so that they will really be forced to return it to us. That is one of the plans we have, Your Honor. But we have to consult with the telcos really on this.
You'll forgive us for interrupting your presentation, but just on this point, you said, sir, you will be issuing policies. Now, I'm not saying that this is being rushed, but shouldn't the policies be in place first before we conduct any bidding of sorts, so that we get as wide a possible of participation from the best and the brightest in the world? Meaning to say, this is the direction I'm headed towards in relation to the question of Senator Riza. Roughly, Smart owns about 50%, correct me if I'm wrong, the frequency and bandwidth available for telcos. About 50, roughly. Or more.
Yes, sir.
Smart PLDT, yeah. Globe owns something like 30%.
That's
And
true.
what you will be awarding is about 20%, which doesn't even include 5G. Right?
Approximately about that much, Your Honor.
Approximately. So, How will the third telco player be competitive if Smart has that much? Kumbaga kung highway yan, 10 lanes ang Smart eh. Ito binibigay nyo rito sa new telco player, 3 lanes, 4 lanes. Si Globe, 6 lanes. Diba? So, when you talk about reallocating the frequencies, does that mean that you will seek an equilibrium between all three, whereby they will have 10 lanes each? Para nga naman pantay at match. At talagang may competition. Would that be correct, sir?
That would be correct, Your Honor. However, in a timeline, the third telco will need about 2 years to really roll out its mobile infrastructure where they will need the frequency. No? On the first 2 years, they will be more or less rolling out fixed wireless. And this is where we need fixed wireless because 14% of our fixed establishment have no connection. Ito yung mga fiber to the home. So these are, by the third year, then maybe our policies will kick in. And in fact, maybe even the law that the Congress will also be effective during that time. So it is in the timeline, sir. That's why I said, itong frequencies na i-award namin are enough really for a startup of from 3 to 5 years.
Agree, sir, but they will never be competitive enough with the 2 existing major telcos unless they are granted or given additional frequencies and bandwidth. Would that be correct?
That is true, Your Honor. That's why we are going to have in that time frame of maybe the 4 or 5 years that they will have the frequencies that they will need, especially the 5G. Frequencies, which will be the one that will be used.
But sir, in 4 or 5 years, you won't be there anymore, or probably not, most likely. So, my question is, why can you not establish the policy already, or commit to establishing a policy that at some point in the allocation of frequencies, the third telco player will get roughly the same bandwidth and frequency as the other 2 who are here right now? Will that be in your policy, sir?
It is, Your Honor. It is, Your Honor. In fact, when we try to attract the third telco contenders, we said that in 5 years we will have, in 3 years' time, we will have an equitable distribution of the frequencies, either through policies made by the department or through law that is coming from the Congress.
Sir, I'll go direct to the point. Every 3 years or every so often, new frequencies are allocated to the Philippines. Yun naman yung ma-allocate nyo ulit. Diba? Sa ngayon, wala na. Unless may mabiling frequency o franchise holder na may frequency in third telco player. Now, can I ask for a commitment from the DICT and the NTC that number 1, such a policy will be issued not in the next 5 years because you won't be there anymore, sir. Or probably your replacement might have a different idea already. For a memorandum circular regulation to be issued by either the NTC or the DICT through the NCT, that indeed there will be such an allocation of frequency emanating from government in order to equalize the available frequency and bandwidth to all the telco players and not give unfair or undue advantage to those who happen to arrive first or ventured into this business first in our country. Can we get that commitment from you, sir?
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, that commitment has been known by the contenders themselves.
But not 5 years, sir.
No, sir. 3 years.
Not even 3, sir. 3 years, wala na rin kayo dun. Yan, pa kayo.
Well, any frequencies we can recover from now until the busiest frequencies that we can recover, Your Honor, will be the 2G because pinipace out na po yung 2G, no? Frequencies. And this one we can recover maybe in the next year. And this can now become available to the third player, not as a 2G, but for its, maybe even for its 5G utilization. So these are the frequencies that will be available, Your Honor, and you can commit on this maybe a year or 2 from now.
Yun po yung frequency na pwede nyong mabigay pa. Ang hinihiling ko po, yung policy, again, that should have been in place even before we have this bidding. But since hindi naaabot, can't it be sooner, like within the year, at the latest by January? So that at least whoever wins in this bidding would have enough courage to actually venture into this, knowing that at some point in time, the field will be, there will be a level playing field between him and the two other players?
Your Honor, we can assure the body that we will have initially, in fact, as early as before the end of the month, we will be having a public forum with all stakeholders on how to have an equitable use of frequency and have that policy implemented maybe by first quarter of next year. We can commit on that, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Senator Risa?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Follow-up clarificatory question. Presuming na hindi ganun kabilis ang time frame tulad ng sinasabi ng Chair na by end of the year or within the first quarter of next year, what if a law is passed reallocating or refarming frequencies or providing for a system of reallocating and refarming pagkatapos nitong particular decision about the third major telco? If a law is passed, would it still need to undergo a quasi-judicial process?
Your Honor, if a law is passed, then that would really make our jobs much more easier. It will not be anymore a policy or a memorandum circular by a department or an agency, but the law of the land. And we are actually rooting for that law to be passed as soon as possible. But before that law, we have made our commitment